right, still with the minister in the studio with us, having our own conversation as we're going on a break. Listen, unabridged birth certificate and consent letters, the waiver has been signed as of Friday. No longer a requirement for you to travel with them. As you know, that was a conversation that was back and forth between the previous Minister of Home Affairs and the Minister of Tourism. And this, in fact, has also resulted, to an extent, Minister, to the legal costs actually escalating, because certain visas were rejected and certain people were also prevented from coming in, and those people actually took you to court. The DG giving an answer in Parliament saying a contingent liability of civil actions is now totaling 2 billion rands, which means there are cases currently in our courts, and for 2019 we're talking 3,333 so far. And so you put money aside as a contingency plan in case you lose. You might need to pay that amount of money. That seemingly is quite high.
Tab, we don't do that. Contingent liability doesn't mean you put money aside, because there's never been budget for litigation. This is litigation. It simply means there are so many cases in court demanding that. And this figure is cumulative. If you are quoting this from the Citizens article that I saw this morning, I think that article is misleading, because the narrative there is to say the government doesn't have a strategy to deal with migration, and that's why they are being sued. The figure there consists of contracts. In fact, the biggest amount of that
it's 829
yes, it's contracts.
Tenders
people,
and contracts.
Yeah, people querying contracts. Then there's another amount, of course, for migration. Then there was from civics, where somebody says, look, I applied for a passport, it delayed, I couldn't go to my overseas visit on time, I'm suing you. You know, South Africa at the moment. The other amount is labor issues, 94 million, where people are saying, no, I was fired. In the country. And Home Affairs rejected and say you don't qualify. Many of them resort to the courts to try and sue us, to force us to give them documentation for permanent residence, for citizenship, etc. So we are in the process of defending that. So, but the biggest problem were the contracts. And I think there's one contract, I just didn't get the details because this is an ambush. I was not aware that you are going to ask me about it.
I knew that word was going to come out, Minister. I knew that the word ambush was going to come out.
You ambushed me because I need to go and check, because I know there's one particular contract which was issued between the government and CETA, where there's a big battle is in court. Yes, once that matter is out of court, then you realize that these figures of contingent liability are not as bad as they seem to be. The reason that they are putting them ugly is to give a narrative that this department has got no way of dealing with migrants. Everybody is suing, and it's assuming that every person who is suing then is correct.
Let's talk about that article, because that article also points to the fact that there is, of course, that case with the asylum seekers and refugees who are camped outside Pretoria here. They took you to the High Court, and it was revealed in that affidavit by your department that you have got no capacity to enforce the immigration laws.
No. And that article is very silly. Let me tell you how it came about. I received a letter from the mayor of Tshwane demanding that Home Affairs must be the one that takes a lead in. Or first of all, the court case by the citizens in Pretoria is to force the Tshwane Metropolitan Municipality to apply its bylaws. People are putting tents at the gates of other people's homes, in the streets. They are helping themselves there. They are washing in public. And bylaws of any civilized country don't allow that. And they say, please, municipality act. Police, because they are public order policing who are sitting there, they said, you can't just sit. Here are people pitching a tent right at the gate of my house. I mean, I've seen that personally. Now the municipality say, no. This matter is not ours. It's a big issue. It must be done by Home Affairs, because these are illegal immigrants or they are immigrants. Now, our argument is that when you break a bylaw, it shouldn't matter who you are. It shouldn't matter where you come from. It shouldn't matter what your color is, which country you come from. As long as you are a human being within the borders of South Africa, when you break a law there, there must be an authority who acts on that breaking of the law. To give you an example, General Begele, the Minister of Police, went to buildings that were hijacked to rescue those buildings. A person who hijacks a building is a thug.
Yes.
Whether he's a foreign national or whether he's documented or whether he's South African or an American or British, he's a thug. Yeah. He needs police to act. But doesn't need Home Affairs because...
It's too simplistic, isn't it, wouldn't you say, Minister?
No,
say
it's not.
It's just the breaking of the refugees who are waiting for pretty much the same thing that they did in Cape Town and went to the UN offices and saying, we demand that we be taken out of this country.
Yes,
because
they are not saying what
service delivery on Home Affairs has just been slow.
No, Tabo. They are not saying so. They say this is a terrible country.
Yes.
They are being killed.
Right.
And all they want is to be taken out of the country to a safer country because here they are being killed.
Right.
The killing has got nothing to do with whether you have been given status or not.
There are some who are saying that service delivery on your part to process their papers has been quite slow. Yes, I agree with you.
No.
There are those who are saying because of the treatment in this country and the xenophobia that they're experiencing, they would like to be taken to another country.
The demand there was that want to be taken out of the country. Yeah. And they even said they don't want to talk to Home Affairs anymore. They just want to go out. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Philippe Grande, visited. He met them, he met me, and he met the president. Yeah. And he went to them and said, no, I've got no country to take you to. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees doesn't own a country. I can't impose you on any country. The statement say we believe South Africa is a good country. Talk to them about being reintegrated. They said, no, that will never do. Then he said, we can help you to go back to our countries of origin. Even Home Affairs can help you. They said, we're not going there. We're not staying in South Africa. We're not going to any country of origin. We want to be taken out. Quite a number of them are choosing Canada. Yeah. Now, Home Affairs has got no authority to tell Canada that, no, we are taking people to your country. We can't even try that. We are not even going to attempt it because what will that be? So then that's one part. Then the second part is these people, in demanding that they be taken away, they are breaking bylaws of the city of Tshwane by putting up structures where they are not wanted, by putting up structures at the gate of people, by helping themselves in the streets, by washing hair in public. These are bylaws. And we are saying, regardless of their status, because if their status is refugee, then they don't need Home Affairs because a refugee, a person with a refugee status, has got the same right as a South African, except only one right, the right to vote. Yeah. Now, I'm told by officials, because I was not there, that the reason that the UN High Commissioner for Refugees relocated their office to Brook Lane, they say originally they were in the middle of the city. And the same thing happened, and the people who did that were actually refugees with documentation. But they sat in the middle of the city because they had a demand. But they were documented, you know. So now when something like that happens, it needs the authority who is in charge of that city. Regardless of the status.
So you're saying the Tshwane municipality is obfuscating responsibility.
Of course.
They are saying your department is expecting the municipality to do its job.
Exactly.
To deal with
exactly. And the mayor wrote me a letter and I responded to him and said, this is your job. Instead, he sent this letter to a member of DA in Parliament who sits in the Home Affairs office. He's the one who took this news to citizen and started writing this story. All we are saying is that, let me give you an example. If Home Affairs goes there and finds that some of the people there, as it found 4 years ago, are actually refugees, what do we do? Refugees have got the right to stay here in South Africa. They've got the right.
If you find that
but they shouldn't,
a large number of them are undocumented, they don't have that.
But still, if they are not they are undocumented, they must still obey the bylaws. They can't just do anything in public which is not allowed. You know, if they are not yet refugees, but they've been given a Section 22 notice, a Section 24 notice. A Section 24 notice, somebody who say, look, I want to apply for refugee status. We give them that notice that they can be here in South Africa illegally for between 3 months and 6 months. Nobody must trouble them in terms of documentation because they are applying.
Right.
There are also about 279,000 Zimbabweans who came here illegally.
Yeah.
They were given a Zimbabwean special permit.
Right.
If I'm saying is that sit in, had got nothing to do with the ever, especially United Nations, to take them out of the country. When I met the UN High Commissioner, she said, no, from Home Affairs, they are complaining about 3 things. That because there's no documentation, they can't get health care.
Yeah.
2, they can't get education. 3, they can't get jobs. I said, but High Commissioner, there's no single person here in South Africa who has been returned from any hospital or clinic because they've got no document. I'm sure you're aware that we don't do that. Right. Anybody who enters a hospital looking for help,
yes.
and that's why there was a complaint, we help them.
Yes.
Education, Minister Motsoaledi, after discussion with me, issued a circular because I said it is going to work against us to allow kids to grow within the borders of this country.
Minister,
whether they are legal or illegal without going to school.
I'm out of time. Unfortunately,
Yes.
I'm going to have to leave it there. I do appreciate your time. We'll bring you back and we'll unpack it a little bit more.
Thank you.
That is Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, Minister of Home Affairs, and of course trying to explain, including the waiver of requirements to travel with documents, and of course high legal costs and that situation with the asylum seekers and refugees. We'll recap what's leading in your news in the next hour.